Today's lesson is talking about dependent and independent variables. This is a little bit also of a review from earlier in the year, but before we had tables where we had to figure out a missing value. This time you have to create the table. So let's look at the first example. Marcus reads for 30 minutes each night. He wants to determine the total number of minutes he will read over the course of a month. He wrote the equation T equals 30D to represent the total amount of time he has spent reading, where T represents the total number of minutes he read, and D represents the number of days he read during the month. Determine which variable is dependent and which is independent. Then create a table to show how many minutes he read in the first 7 days. Well, if we think of independent and dependent variables, we know that the independent variable changes. When it changes, it affects the dependent variable. So the dependent variable depends on the independent variable. So looking at this, we're going to create a table, and I have a table here for you. In the table, we need to know the number of days. Now the days are going to change no matter what. Tomorrow will come, the next day will come, whether we read or not. So the reading depends, the minutes depends on the days. The days don't depend on the reading. The reading only happens if another day happens. So let's look at the days, and we want to know the independent variable. The independent variable is the days. That one is independent. It's on its own. It changes no matter what. The dependent is the minutes because it depends on the days. If the days don't move, the minutes don't add up. Okay. Now, it says we want to know how many minutes he read in the first 7 days. All right, so that means I'm going to put in day 1, day 2, day 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. First 7 days. All right. Now, total minutes read. This already gives me an equation. Remember, he had the equation here. The time was 30 minutes total read. Okay, so 30 minutes per day. So 30 times D. D is the number of days, so 30 times 1 is 30 minutes after 1 day. After 2 days, 2 times 30 is 60. 3 times 30 is 90. 4 times 30 is 120. 5 times 30 is 150. And continuing. In this problem, they gave us the equation to use. In the next example, we're going to need to come up with that equation. So in this one, we came up with the equation, or they gave us the equation 30D, 30 times however many days he had read. Let's look at another example. Kiara designs websites. She can create 3 different websites each week. Kira wants to create an equation. There's our example. That's what we're going to do. We're going to create an equation that will give her the total number of websites she can design given the number of weeks she works. Determine the dependent and independent variables. Create a table. Do all these things to show the number of websites she can design over the first 5 weeks. Finally, write an equation to represent the number of websites she can design when given any number of weeks. All right, let's take a look. I've already got my table prepared here. Again, we want to determine the dependent and independent variables, create a table, and write an equation. We're going for 5 weeks here. All right, so when I look at these 2 different variables, I have weeks worked. I'm going to use a W and make that a little neater. And I'm going to use a D for number of websites that she designed. All right, first I need to look at which one of them is independent. Which one is going to change no matter what? I believe that that one is the time, because time will continue no matter what. So the number of weeks worked is our independent variable. So I'm going to abbreviate and just shorten it here to weeks. The dependent variable, the one that depends on the other, is the websites. She couldn't create more websites if it wasn't a new week. All right, we'll get back to the equation in a moment. Let's make the table first. That is the second thing it's asking us to do over here. Now, they want to know for the first 5 weeks. So, week 1, week 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's not always going to ask you for the first set of numbers. It might ask you for something starting with a different number. We'll get to one of those in a moment. Okay, so in my problem it says she can create 3 different websites each week. So in the first week, she creates 3 websites. On the second week, she creates 3 more, which would make 6. On the next week, she creates 3 more, which makes 9. And 3 more. And 3 more. Now is where it comes in, where we want to know what's that equation that's going to give us no matter how many weeks. If I want to know how many she makes in 12 weeks, what's the equation to figure that out? Well, first I have to look at the example. Let's see. If I did 1 times 3, that would give me 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 3, I think I'm coming up with a pattern, because she has 3 different websites each week. Now, I also want to remind you of the way we learned earlier in the year from Ms. Hill, which taught us a trick. If we go this direction, work with me here, I'm going to try to remember. Okay, from 1 to 2 is plus 1. 2 to 3 is plus 1. 3 to 4, I'm seeing a pattern here. Now, we want to get back to that magic number of 0. So I'm going to put 0 up here. To get from 1 back to 0, I'm going to subtract 1. Okay. Going from 3 to 6 is plus 3. From 6 to 9 is plus 3. 9 to 12. All right. Now, I've got my multiple factor over here multiple times, so I'm going to have a 3 in my variable, multiplied times the variable, which in this case is W. And then remember, whatever you get in this section that lines up with that 0, the magic 0, that gives us what we add to our 3W. All right, let's see. If I'm going this way and adding 3, to go this way I would subtract 3. So 3 minus 3 is 0. Whew, I remembered. I'm so proud of myself. Woohoo! Okay, so when we add 0, we could just leave it as 3W. So the equation is 3W, because it's an equation, we have to have an equal sign, equals the D for the designed websites. It's a bit tricky. On your own, here is one for you to try on your own. Pura streams movies through a company that charges her a $5 monthly fee, plus $1.50 per movie. So it's going to do several things here. I want you to determine the independent and dependent variables, write an equation to model the situation, and create a table to show the total cost per month, given that she might stream between 4 and 10 movies in a month. Now, I've given you spots here for your independent, dependent, and equation. You're going to put those all 3 on your notes page, but also include the table. I didn't include that because I want to see what you can come up with. Now, remember, this one's not asking for the first few weeks or first few months. It's asking you between 4 and 10. So you're going to start your table with a 4 and go down to 10. Don't forget, she added a few things here. We're definitely going to talk about this one in class tomorrow, so be prepared to share your answers.